Hey guys, Rudro Mukherji here, this side. It is a very wonderful evening, so good evening to all of you. It's a bit, chilled here. I'm a bit outskirt of Kolkata. I had a drive of almost 50 kilometers or more than that, and it's a countryside outside Kolkata. And here we had a little rain. It was raining and the weather is very much cool. So we thought making of a good video on Indian polity, or it's kind of a comparison between two books. They have one book here, another is here. It's a book written by Laxmikanth. So it's a great book. We're going to talk about it. And here is another book on the Constitution of India written by P.M. Bakshi. It's a book completely read by my Archie, my pet, my dog, who, I don't know, out of sheer joy or frustration, ate a few portions of the book here. So today we are going to talk about two books, and this is kind of a comparison. It's kind of a review of two books, and you can choose any book. Both are really cool. Actually, Indian Polity, this particular book written by M.Laxmikanth is really very much popular. This is not that much popular, but it's a book, of course. It's a great book written by P.M. Bakshi. So today we are going to talk about the whole content of these two books and what you can expect from these two books and which book can be very much suitable for you. It's up to you to decide, of course. I'll just give you a little bit of guidelines here. Today the post that I have shared in our group of Zero Sum called Target WBCS, that post was a snapshot from this particular page. Here you have, all the parts and article coverage. So you have a rough idea on which part, what kind of, theme is there, which part talks about which particular organ of Indian Constitution, or rather of India as a state, and what are the article coverages of each chapter. Now this is also there in Laxmikanth. So for the beginners, Laxmikanth is of course a good book, as well as for P.M. Bakshi. It's again a good book for the beginners, because in P.M. Bakshi you have a very good portion. It's the almost almost 10-12 pages of the gist of Indian Constitution. It's in a beautiful pink color. Here you get the whole Indian Constitution in a nutshell. Like, you have Preamble. This particular portion is all about Preamble. Then you have Part 1. Part 1, as you know, that it's all about Union of India. And then you have Part 2 here. In Part 2 you have citizenship, fundamental rights, and you have a good amount of portion from fundamental rights of Part 3. Then you have directive principles. So all the important parts of their fundamental duties. Then you have President of India and Vice President from Part 5, Prime Minister, Attorney General, Parliament of India. Of course, this particular portion from the Parliament of India is not going to help you much in a long run, because you get so much, information when you go through the whole book. But here you get some kind of info in a nutshell. You get to know what the Indian Parliament is all about, what are different organs and all. So money below is also there. under the Parliament of India, you have Money Bill. This particular portion talks about Money Bill. Then you have Ordinary Bill here. So sometimes even this particular portion is useful when you have parliamentary committees, like very important committee, Public Accounts Committee. Here it's written. Then you have Sessions of Parliament. Here, Joint Session of the Parliament, Comptroller and Auditor General, and you have Part 6 from here when it talks about the government, the governors of states, so the state mechanism, the government of the state. You have Supreme Court of India, you have state legislature, so almost all the important organs of Indian constitution, or rather India as a state, is there. You have municipalities, panchayat is there, municipality is there. So in a nutshell, when you go through these pink pages, almost 10 to 12 pages, when you go through these pages, you have a rough idea, not exactly rough idea, you have rather a good amount of idea about the Constitution of India. So this is the positive side of this book. The Constitution of India. It's by Universal Law Publishing Company, and it's a book written by P.M. Bakshi. And here we have Indian Polity book written by M.Laxmikanth. Let's have a look from Laxmikanth's book. You have almost all the chapters elaborately and adequately spoken. From the very beginning, you have historical background. It's a very important portion. Even if you don't go through this particular portion, historical background, then you must go through it when you study Indian national movement, because it talks about all the acts that have been passed by the British government. Like you have the Regulating Act of 1773, that was perhaps the first act and the most important act when it was passed during the reign of East India Company. Then you know that from 1773 to 1858, it's all about East India Company rule. So it talks about all the acts that have been passed by the East India Company. And then you have Crown rule from 1858 to 1947. So you have another important portion of acts like the Government of India Act of 1919, the Government of India Act of 1858, the Government of India Act of 1935. So these are the acts, those important acts have been spoken about here. So this is the historical background of Indian Constitution. And by the way, let me tell you, Laxmikanth wanted to show you the gradual progress of Indian Constitution, the gradual evaluation of Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution and the making of Indian Constitution was not a matter of, not an affair of a few days. If you try to go through the history, if you try to locate the evolution, it has been, it's all about, years after years that we got developed, we started to develop our constitution, sometimes indirectly, of course, in the very beginning indirectly and later directly. And then Constitution of India came into being. So this is a very important portion. That is the plus point or the positive aspect of this book called Indian Polity, written by M.Laxmikanth. So, so far in comparison, they make almost equal score when we talk about what are the plus points that we have in these books. Now, if we look at P.M. Bakshi's book, let me go through the contents. It starts with Preamble. So preamble is the first chapter. So let's have a look on the first chapter, which is preamble, from the book called P.M. Bakshi, from the book written by P.M. Bakshi. Again, some pages have been consumed by my dog. I think he enjoyed the book thoroughly. Here you have the Constitution. Here you have the preamble from the Constitution of India. Now let's talk about the descriptive part, the explanatory part. What have been explained here? The basic structure of the Constitution. It is an important term, you all know that. The objectives specified in the preamble contain the basic structure of Indian Constitution, which cannot be amended. You know that basic structure cannot be amended, cannot be repealed, and preamble to some extent form and contribute to the basic structure of Indian Constitution. And what the basic structure is have not been mentioned by the Constitution itself, but it was the interpretation of the Supreme Court of India, which interpreted in such a way that now we know that what basic structure is all about. Basic structure is all about, of course, India being a sovereign country, socialist, secular, democratic and republic state. So, of course, we can't expect India to be a theocratic state overnight. Not exactly overnight, even I can say that, India can never be a theocratic state. India had been a secular state and India will always remain so. Because secularism is under the basic structure of Indian Constitution. So here we have some important cases like Kesavananda Bharati case, like Indira Nehru Gandhi case, like Minerva Mill Limited case. And the explanations are like concept related to separation of powers between the legislature and the executive and the judiciary, as well as the fundamental concept of Indian judiciary, are now elevated to the level of basic structure of Indian Constitution and are the very heart of constitutional scheme. This is judgment from the case called State of Bihar versus Mukund Shah case. Here you get all the references like All India Report 2000, Supreme Court 1296 is the number. So here the plus point is you get very much details. You get detailed explanations. But the question is it good for beginners? Of course not. Because this book can be a very good reference book when you are writing for IAS, but not exactly for WBCS, because you don't need that much details even in WBCS. So for WBCS, this kind of explanations are not going to help you in a long run. So this is the negative aspect of the book. Now let's have a look on the preamble of Indian Constitution from Laxmikanth's book. Now Laxmikanth started the book, started this particular chapter in the same format like that of P.M. Bakshi. The text of preamble, with the people of India having solemnly resolved and blah blah blah. Now Laxmikanth directly moves to explaining the keywords here. The keywords are these, these words written in capital letter format. So sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic, these are the keywords. So he goes on explaining the keywords. What does the word sovereign mean? The word sovereign implies that India is neither a dependency nor a dominion of any other nation but an independent state. So you now know that India, being a sovereign country, is an independent state. So being sovereign means being independent. So in this way, Laxmikanth is more lucid than that of PM Bakshi. So another term, like those people who live in the country called India, which is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, are entitled to enjoy justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, unity and integrity. So let's talk about justice here. The term justice in the preamble embraces three distinct forms: social, economic and political. So justice are of three types: social justice, economic justice and political justice, secured through various provisions of the fundamental rights and directive principles. Social justice denotes, he keeps on saying, social justice denotes the equal treatment of all citizens without any social distinction based on caste, color, race, religion, sex, and so on. It means absence of privileges being extended to any particular section of the society and improvement in the conditions of backward classes and women. Even he has mentioned SCs, STs and OBCs under brackets to give you further idea about the term that he has used, backward classes. What the backward classes are all about, it's all about SCs, STs and OBCs. So this book is of course very much important for the beginners as well as for those who are seeking to make good concepts. So if we talk about the first chapter called Preamble, then of course this book will be better off. Now the plus point of the book written by PM Bakshi is those pink colored pages that give you a rough idea, a short idea, a very precise idea about the whole constitution of India. Now this particular portion can be easily photocopied by you from if you have some friends who got this book, or if you visit your nearest library. So for these particular pages you don't need to buy a book. Now the next question is there any other plus point that you should go for this book written by PM Bakshi? Yes, there are some plus points. Let me give you a rough idea. Those who are appearing even in IAS along with WBCS, this book is more important for you, because here you have table of cases. Almost all the cases, all the important cases that had been filed with Supreme Court and other important other courts like high courts and all. Mainly Supreme Court's cases have been mentioned here, but the main point here is like you have page numbers here. So for example, you want to know about this particular case. For example, let's take a case which is very much popular. Like you have Keshwanan Bharati case, Keshwanan Bharati versus the state of Kerala. These are the pages where this particular case has been mentioned. So you get reference, and this book is a good source for reference work. Now You have some charts here. Let's have a look. Yes. You have amendments at a glance. You have the date. You don't need to remember the dates. You just need to remember the year. And you just need to remember articles amended, those articles that have been mentioned, that have been impacted by the particular Amendment Act. Like the first Amendment Act was passed in 1951. Articles affected were 15, 19, 85 and so on. Articles inserted, if any articles were added, that have been mentioned here. If any articles were repealed or deleted, that have been mentioned here. Then you have schedules that have been affected here. Schedules added, 9th schedule was added. And you have some other areas, even amendment of the part if a part is affected or the chapter is affected here. So you have a chart. Now the question is, for this particular chart, do you need to buy this book? The answer would be no, because even in Laxmikanth, you have important amendments. In the last portion of the book, you have constitutional amendments at a glance. Important amendments are there, even like you have the First Amendment Act passed in 1951. Here, articles are not mentioned. That is the negative aspect of the book. But here you have the provisions that have been affected, like empowered the state to make special provisions for the advancement of socially and economically backward classes. Now the question is, for WBCS, you just need to know which provision was affected mainly. And of course, sometimes even the articles are important. When some articles are important, like article number 21A, that is very important. It's 86th Amendment Act of 2002, when article 21A was added to the Constitution. Now when you go through article 21A in the fundamental rights portion, here in the fundamental rights, when you read about article 21A, this is mentioned. So to be very frank, you don't need this particular book written by PM Bakshi, because here in article 21A it is clearly written that the provision was added by 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002. It is written over here. So if you go through the whole book, of course you don't need this particular chart which is there in PM Bakshi's book, because the chart can be made really by you, because when you are going through the whole book, you have important articles and you have important amendment acts. You can always take a note about the amendment acts and the provisions that have been affected and the associated articles that have been affected. So you can always take a note from this book. This book written by Laxmikanth has some other features too. Here you get some UPSC questions on Indian polity. So this book is again very much helpful for those who are appearing in IAS, because you get previous year questions from Indian polity asked by UPSC. So this book is going to help you. And you have some portions here even in Laxmikanth's book. Like you have important articles. Where are they? Here. In the very last portion of the book, you have important articles. You can always go through the portion and can easily draw a conclusion like what are the important articles that you have to remember. I have gone through the book, so I have marked the book in this way. Like you need to remember Article 2, Article 1. Article 1 is not marked here. Article 3, you need to know Article 3. Here you need to know Article 13. Article 13 talks about any law in derogation with fundamental rights shall be void. Article 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, almost all the articles in fundamental rights portion. Even if you go to Panchayat, you get all the articles, the list of articles there. You need to remember Article 243D, it's all about reservation of seats. You need to remember 243H, powers to impose taxes. You need to remember Article 243K, it's a very important article, election to the Panchayats. So you have all the articles listed here. If you take a look, it's really important for you to have a look on Laxmikanth's book, because it has mentioned all the articles under Indian Constitution. Somebody asks me which edition. Edition doesn't matter. I have second edition because I'm a bit old school. This is a book bought by me in 2008, so it's an old edition. You have new editions in the market, so go for the new edition always. Injamul Ahmed, asks me this question. Now let's talk about some portion from part 5. Like in part 5 you have the central government mechanism, like you have president. Now I'm reading out from this portion called President. Article 52 to 78 in part 5 of Indian Constitution deal with the Union Executive. So you have a very clear idea about the article as well as the parts. The Union Executive consists of, now you might have question like what Union Executives constitute of. So you have a clear idea now. The Union Executive consists of the President, the Vice President, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers and the Attorney General of India. So you now have the idea what Union Executive is all about. Now you have the President. Here the election of the President is mentioned. Here the election of the President is explained rather in a more lucid way. You have points to be remembered. So it's a very good book. But if you have a look at PM Bakshi's book, let's read out. Now I guess out of frustration perhaps Archie chewed some portions of the book because he didn't like the book much, I guess. Indian Polity book is not affected by him, so perhaps he liked the book very much. Alright, let's read out a portion from part 5. Let's take President of India. Then you have an idea like which book to choose for your preparation. It's good to refer to the contents of the book because this book a bit complicated. But it's of course a good book if you are appearing for IAS as well as for WBCS. So this book alone going to help you in a long run if you are appearing in both the exams. King Shuk asked me for CGL this titling is important, not very much, but for CGL even polity is very much important portion. So Indian Polity, this particular book, Indian Polity by Laxmikanth, is going to help you in CGL Kingshuk. And as far as I remember, Kingshuk used to be my old student. If you are, then how are you, Kingshuk? How are you doing? It's been long that I didn't have any kind of news from you. So what are you doing nowadays? Here I have part 5, and since the book is a bit complicated, I'm taking some time to find out President. Yeah, we have Parliament, Union, Executive, and I have President here on 93 page. Here. The President of India, Article 52. So, from the article point of view, this book is written. So, you have Article 52, 53, and you have all the, sub-articles. So, articles have been explained here in this book, and the concept have been explained here in Laxmikanth's book. So, if you need concept, then Laxmikanth's book is going to help you. But if you need article to article study, some reference work, some more intense knowledge, then of course this book written by P.M. Bakshi is going to help you. Article 52 says the President of India, there shall be the President of India. This is the exact thing that is mentioned under Article 52. So the article is mentioned here. Then under Article 53, the executive power of the Union is mentioned. Now let's go for the explanatory part of Article 53. You have good amount of explanation of Article 53 here. The executive power have been explained here. The executive, the following prepositions are worth noting. Executive power must be exercised in accordance with the Constitution, including in particular the provisions of Article 14. Now you have Rao versus Indira case, AIR and all. You have another case. You have some areas here. Executive power, so long as it does not violate the Constitution or the law, may be exercised without prior legislative support. Then you have some other cases. So in this way Article 53 is explained. So it is not at all a good book for the beginners, because you don't have any idea at all from this particular book if you are a beginner, because the articles are explained here, not even in a very elaborate way, so it is not going to help you much in the long run. Let's have a look at the election of the President. Election of the President. The President shall be elected by the members of an electoral college consisting of, now where information is needed, then it is there in P.M. Bakshi's book. The elected members of both the houses of the parliament, the elected members of legislative assemblies of the state. Now explanation. In this article and in Article 55, state includes the national capital territory of Delhi and union territory of Pondicherry. So under the definition of state, Delhi and Puducherry are also included. But let's have a look at the manner of the election of the President, Article 55. You have some explanations here. Let's have a look. As far as practicable, there shall be uniformity in the scale of representation of different states at the election of the President. For the purpose of securing such uniformity among the states, inter se, as well as parity between the states, as a whole, and the union and the number of votes which each elected members of the parliament and of legislative assembly of each state entitled to cast at such elections shall be determined in the following manner. Every elected member of the legislative assembly of the state shall have as many votes as there are multiples of 1000 in quotient obtained by dividing the population of this. It's a bit complicated, of course. Let's be very much honest with each other. Even you don't enjoy the book thoroughly when you read page by page. Let's have a look at the same portion from Laxmikanth. Now, how lucidity will help you in Laxmikanth's book. Let's have a look at it. Here I have the election of the president. Election of the president. Electoral college consists of elected members of both the houses of the parliament, elected members of the legislative assemblies of the state, elected members of the legislative assemblies of the union territories, Delhi and Pondicherry. This particular sentence is very much lucid in nature. It's good for beginners. Now, this particular information is also there in the book written by P.M. Bakshi, but the problem is the way P.M. Bakshi talks about it gives you a what do I say, boring experience when you go through the book. So, in a very elaborate manner, in a very lucid manner, election of the president is explained here in Laxmikanth's book. Now the question is, why do people choose the book called Indian Constitution, written by P.M. Bakshi? Because this book is good for reference work. This book has some cases good for reference work. Again, this book goes on talking as per the articles covered under Indian Constitution of India, under the Constitution of India, and sometimes this book is good because this book has some portions like public interest litigation. You have this much portion on public interest litigation. You don't have that much in-depth, explanation in Laxmikanth's book. Sometimes you have some concepts that are very much important, not for WBCS but for IAS, like what does natural justice mean. If you have political science as your optional, then this book is very much important. When you talk about natural justice, you don't find this particular issue in Laxmikanth's book. In this way, this book is a bit exclusive. So, for the beginners, I suggest, of course, Indian Polity, written by Laxmikanth. And when you are done with Laxmikanth, when you need some book for reference work, you can go for P.M. Bakshi's book on Indian Constitution. Don't choose the book written by D.D. Basu. D.D. Basu's book had been a very popular book, but it's written in almost in the same format that the book of P.M. Bakshi. So, if you want to choose from D.D. Basu and P.M. Bakshi, P.M. Bakshi is better because in P.M. Bakshi you have some exclusive portions that are not there in the book written by D.D. Basu, as well as this particular book written by Laxmikanth. So that's it for tonight. I think it's time to leave and choose your book wisely. For the beginners, I repeat, Laxmikanth's book is good. For those who are appearing for WBCS, Laxmikanth's book is more than enough. You don't need to go for P.M. Bakshi's book. Those who are very much interested to know some issues that are not mentioned in P.M. Bakshi's in Laxmikanth's book, they can choose P.M. Bakshi's book for the reference study. So that's it, and I take a leave now. You guys be very much choosy when you choose your textbook, because the textbook is going to be the basic structure of your knowledge. I thank you all for your time. Goodbye.